And so I would sit with the Sangoma. They would teach me how to throw the bones. And they also would give me an insight in especially ancestors. The relationship to ancestor is indicative whether a person is on the right path, whether a person is healthy. And how, especially in dreams, that dreams are not just little fragments that happen at night, but is a coexisting reality or a stream of consciousness that continues to exist when you wake up. And that the world of dream or the other world is the place where the ancestors live and the spirits live and spirit animals.
Just be here now. Just be here now.
Hey everyone, it's Raghu. I'm back with Mindrolling, and I have somebody that I have wanted to talk to for a long time, but I didn't even know he existed. Machiel Klerk. Welcome to Mindrolling, and happy to have you.
Thank you, Raghu. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah. So there's a new book that you just put out. I think it's fairly new, eh? Dream Guidance, and it's connecting to the soul through dream incubation. And we'll get more into that. But just love to hear a little bit about your background, what even would have led you. Well, let's even get much more basic. What are the things that gave you the idea that there was something outside of the senses and the thinking mind that was worthy of pursuit?
Yeah, a great question. And my journey really started when I was stuck in the pit and I couldn't go any further. I was in my early 20s. I hadn't dealt well with the grief of the loss of my father, who died when I was 10, which had accumulated. I hadn't dealt well with my feelings in general. I was I was doing my bachelor, but wasn't excited about it, and was sitting on the couch and smoking too much weed at the time as well, which made me very lethargic. And so all these things did lead up to being massively stuck, had no future vision. If I would think about the future, it would be just black. I remember those days. And then by chance, I stumbled upon the works of Carl Jung, who opened me up to this notion that there is more than the senses, because this was very astute beginning. I lived in a world that was what I could see that existed, and there was some belief that there was maybe something behind it, but I didn't know that. And then reading Jung's work, that changed my worldview. It opened me up to dreams. Dreams started flooding in, and I got a sense of that there is a world behind the world. I reconnected to my father in my dreams, got a sense of purpose. So that massively changed the course of my life. And I've been just hanging on to the thread of dreams because they've been helpful ever since.
That's wonderful. And I do know as well, you have traveled extensively into other cultures and so on. Particularly, I'm thinking about South Africa, and you really highlighted, I think is the right word, the practice of really working with one's dreams in the Sangoma tradition. I have a good friend who, in fact, I just did a podcast with recently, it's not out yet, John Lockley, who is actually a white person who through his dream, was invited into a specific Sangoma tradition that was only African people. And he was one of the first to be invited. And, ignorance is weird because you always think, oh, a shamanistic tradition. Oh, let's go do ayahuasca with them. That kind of idiotic Western thing that we have around these traditions. We're sometimes, not very tuned in. And in fact, that was not a part of their tradition, at least not publicly. And what was the power of dreams and the power of relating with ancestors, and we can get into that again.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a little bit about maybe mention a little bit about your trips that you've taken to Asia and Africa.
Well, I was born in South Africa.
Oh, right. That's
and
right.
I hadn't returned for several decades till about now 10, 12 years ago. I started having dreams of me being in the plane, landing in Johannesburg, and really having a sense of coming home and be deeply moved. So and then I would watch TV programs about South Africa, and I met another white Sangoma in California who was intriguing. And so I decided to go back to South Africa and visit the place, and then also visit the indigenous healers, the Sangoma. And they would throw the bones, and then it's called there, it's shells and stones and whatever that really shows what is going on, whether it's on healing, on spiritual level, emotional level. It's there. It's one of their ways of diagnosing how a person is doing and finding the medicine. And they would tell me, "Oh, you we can see you're a healer in your own right," and and so also they said you're welcome to sit here, and we share insights on dreams and healing. And so I would sit with the Sangoma. They would teach me how to throw the bones, and they also would give me an insight in, especially ancestors. How ancestor is the relationship to ancestor is indicative whether a person is on the right path, whether a person is healthy, and how the notion is, especially in dreams, that dreams are not just little fragments that happen at night, but is a coexisting reality or a stream of consciousness that continues to exist when you wake up, and that the world of dream or the other world is the place where the ancestors live and the spirits live and spirit animals. They usually tend to say ancestor and then lump in everyone or anything that just lives in the other world. So it's not only your blood ancestor, it's anyone who died, but also spirit guides or other spirits. And how to build a relationship with these beings. So also their method is not so interpretive, like what does this mean, but how do I build up a relationship with grandfather or spirit guide so that I hear this guide in my day-to-day life and I give expression to it.
Yeah. So I think, but we should go back to Jung though, because I think personally it's very, his work is extremely important and can help a lot of people.
Yeah.
I was fortunate myself many years ago to have a Jungian psychotherapist that was just phenomenal, a mentor to me. And the work that we did was extraordinary. And there's a certain kind of openness, and I'm sure you know this quite well, with people that have immersed themselves in his philosophy, shall we say. And for instance, this particular being that I was seeing for a while, he had, he of course and Jung too was very open to Eastern traditions and knew of them, and certainly knew of the tradition that I come from, which is Bhakti Yoga. We haven't even talked at all about any of this, Machiel and I. But just obviously, this is Ram Dass's Be Here Now network. And I spent time in India with him and our guru, Neem Karoli Baba, the man in the blanket from Be Here Now. So this Jungian therapist, who was not into quote unquote gurus particularly or anything like that, he would say, as I walked, one time I remember I walked in the room and he sat down, he said, we just started talking for a minute, and then he said, well, what do you think Neem Karoli Baba would say about this? I was like shocked that he'd even go there. He said, well, why don't we sit with him? Let's just invite him into the room. And we did. It was one of the most powerful therapeutic sessions I've had in my life. So that kind of openness is so critical has been for my appreciation of Jung. Just talk about how he affected you so deeply that set you out on this path.
Yeah, a beautiful story, and indeed one of the openness to the other world, that there's a world behind the world that's not immediately visible to the senses unless you slow down and let the imagination come in, and that you treat the imagination also as real, and that there is a real, at least a real imaginative figure there that you can engage with. And once you do that, like I learned in my early 20s, that these figures, they say things back, or you can write it down, or your intuition, or you get a sense, and they bring information and suggestions that I didn't have, and that would set me, would help me on my path. And one of the things I think this openness that Jung did, and that I started to try to emulate a little bit, is that you start noticing I wasn't alone. I felt deeply alone in the pit. And then at once, there's a whole host of beings and ancestors, and even my dad and etc., who are supportive. I need to do the work here, but I'm no longer alone. And
that's huge.
That is so huge. Yeah. And a sense of there's a life after death, and life has meaning versus could it have something? And what the meaning exactly is a whole different question, but there was a sense of there's some meaning to it. It's not, I'm not living in some accidental universe. And
random, oh God, what's going to be hitting me next?
Right.
Between that and isolation and separation, both externally and internally, when we have that going on, life can be very, very, very difficult, which is why the beauty of this man, Carl Jung, is extraordinary. And those of you who know of Jung and maybe know a little bit should really, we'll put in the show note, maybe you can even suggest a starter book or something from Jung, and then we can put that up there, Machiel.
Yeah, I can say it right now. It's his autobiography, Memories, Dreams, and Reflection, that gives a good start, or Man and His Symbol, which is a compilation of some key concepts that are somewhat practical to implement.
So personally, can you tell us, a story of a dream or something that was crucial to your moving into this in such a profound way, the world of dream incubation?
Well, there's a kind of two questions in one. What I noticed in just in general in dreams in that initial phase is that dreams provided kind of psychological X-rays of where I was. And so I would see characters that were doing unhelpful activities, sleeping in too long, missing school or something like that. And then I would ask myself, where in my life do I see this? Didn't really require a lot of skill to see where that was.
Especially young 20s, right?
Yeah, but there were also characters that were engaged and passionate and had a purpose. And when I aligned with those, I started to, within weeks and months, I started feeling a sense of flow again, coming back in my life, and even finding some joy in climbing out of the pit. Because walking around or sitting there in the pit, that's really horrible. And even having the feeling like, it's still not great, but I have a sense that I can get out of this, was just energizing. And so a lot of really little dreams did indicate that. And sure, I had some big dreams in which I met my dad, or I met some characters that came up with suggestions. And I think we all have some of those big dreams and helpful dreams. Yet going to the dream incubation, which is the technique of asking your dream a question before you go to bed in order to have a helpful response, I've noticed that you don't have to wait for the dream to come to you and deliver some goodie, some insight. You can ask the dream for help with anything that's relevant for your life path. And that is what I try to describe in the book with the steps you can do that. That was, I think that is a very helpful element of it. There's the support on standby that is willing to help and can help in many ways, but one of the ways is through dreams.
And back to Jung, who you quote, saying, "Dreams have influenced all the important changes in my life and theories."
Yeah.
Which is a huge statement. What you say at the end of his life, he was already well into his 80s. It's interesting that he was asked, what'd you say, to write a general introduction book to his theories, and he declined.
Yes.
Until you tell what happened.
Yes, there was a publisher who, and Jung wrote kind of difficult books, especially towards the end. That if you have no pre-knowledge of his work, it's a tough read. So the publisher thought, we need to ask Jung while he's still alive if he can write some book that's an introduction to his work.
Yeah.
And when the publisher asked Jung, Jung thought briefly about it and said, no, thank you. Yet then he had a dream in which he saw a tree, and he was plucking the fruit of the tree and giving that to people from all kinds of places who surprisingly were interested in eating the fruit. And he thought, maybe I need to make this work accessible to the larger community. And so he changed his mind based on that dream. And the next time that this publisher asked him again, Jung said, yes, I'm willing to do this.
And that first book was?
That book is Man and a Symbol.
Man and a Symbol.
And that is one of his last book in life. He wrote one after that, but yeah.
Right. I mean, just think of it, that we are benefiting from this incredible wisdom by virtue of what you are talking about, that dreams are not separate from life and they inform us. And I like how you remind us all of Joseph from the Bible, right? And the multicolored coat that he dreamt of. I mean, and these are more precognitive or prophetic dreams. Yeah, talk about them, because I have experienced that myself and had my mind blown. In one particular instance, I was in India with a group and a teacher, long time back, and I had these it was a dream. I didn't know what was happening. I had all these events going on in my dream around the people I was with and this teacher. And the next day, I mean, just like a bowling ball, knocking one pin after the other of what had happened in this dream. I was like shocked. I'll never forget that. But yeah, talk about that a little bit, Machiel.
Well, I think it's remarkable. It happens to us, and most of us have had one or some of those experiences. And what I think is that what is so great about it is that then we know from our own experience there is something in the depths of our own psyche or in the depths of our own soul that knows things that can happen in the future or that can happen in different continents. There's some intelligence operating in us that lies besides the sphere of our ego, and then the question becomes: once you know that it's there, how can I build a relationship, an experience with this phenomenon that is deeply intelligent and very wise, and you can build a relationship by it through Jungian techniques as active imagination, having conversations with it, consulting it throughout the day, or consulting this phenomenon at night. Because if it knows this, but it knows also who we are, what would be good for us to develop, which directions to go in, or the outcome of some activity that we do, and nurture that relationship with the phenomenon that knows. That is, I think, the real next step that can happen from having these dreams and this direct experience that there's something that is creative, wise, intelligent.
The phenomena that knows. That's a good one. And that comes, really in line with my own experience related to guru is such an overused, shitty term these days. And you're using ancestors, basically, as a way to characterize that we all, and this is maybe my projection, but we all have a guide deep inside ourselves that's accessible through intuition, through dreams, through phenomena that are beyond ego mind, basically.
Yeah.
And every one of us has that, and I think it manifests through dreams. That's a great, I mean, I can't tell you, when I first met Neem Karoli Baba, I started having a series of dreams. I couldn't tell, did that happen? I was with him the other day. Did that happen then? Or was it, it was just, they lost the focus of sleep time thing, which that's just a dream, and daytime thing, which is another dream, basically.
Yeah.
And it all got into one fabric. And I think that's a really important thing. And when you say, you have one chapter, the dream is interested in helping us.
Yes.
That's really sweet. And the reality is, what is that? What is that? Tell us what.
Well, that is this combination between a guide and this phenomenon that knows, that is on standby to support all life and also our life. And I think in somewhat metaphorical, we're waves on the ocean. We're made of the same substance as the ocean. We're connected to the ocean. And this ocean is interested in helping the wave become itself. And a lot of spiritual traditions refer to this: ask and you shall be given, or some form of even a love relationship between the human and the mystery. And what I've learned in my exploration is that this phenomenon is interested in helping and educating. And maybe I can share a dream that I wrote somewhere also in the book, I believe. Yes, I did. And it was, I asked the dream, what do you want to tell the readers about this technique of asking you for help. And I thought, well, invite this mystery in to say something. And the dream I have is I'm at a company, and the company has a very wise, compassionate female CEO. And this compassionate CEO is the best coach possible. And but what she will do is, if you want to figure it out on your own, that is totally fine, no judgment. Whether that takes you 2 or 3 years to accomplish a certain project is completely fine. However, if you want to have help, she'll be delighted in equal same way, and she will help you with your task or project. And and that was the dream, and I took that as this compassionate CEO or guiding principle is really has complete free will for you, the person. You want to do it on your own and figure it out, you're welcome to do so. However, you want help, it loves to educate and support. And you can reach out, and then you get guidance for whatever it is that you're busy with or engaged with on your life journey. So I think that is that figure is on standby, and people approach it maybe in meditation or in prayer. And one of the ways it communicates with us is through dreams.
You quote Rumi. We all love Rumi.
Yeah.
And I think this is super important. It extends into beyond what you think is a dream life or a waking life. It goes beyond those two, not polarities, those two realities, shall we say.
Yeah.
There is no lover seeking union without the beloved searching for him too. A thirsty person cries for fresh water, while water is crying, "Who wants to drink me?" You know what? I'm not familiar with that, and I've read a lot of Rumi. That's just you're saying the Rumi's indicating the relationship between man and the divine is a love affair, both searching for each other. Our thirst for the divine is only answered by the divine's cry of being taken in. I just have one story that has to do with Ram Dass, actually.
Yeah.
He got, we were with Neem Karoli Baba one day, and he got very angry we were in our early 20s. He was 40, so he was the elder for sure. And we were acting out some stuff, as people in their early 20s do, even though we had incredible karma to be over in that moment over in India and meeting him. And anyhow, he got so upset, he threw a plate of food at one of the Westerners. And if you're in India, the way food is treated, if you don't finish your food, you might as well have gone over and slapped the host or something, It's that important. And he did the ultimate no-no. So then eventually Maharaji, who we called Neem Karoli Baba, called him up and said, "You're angry, Ram Dass?" And Ram Dass said, "Yes, these people are adharmic." In other words, all they care about is me, which is exactly what was going on. And he said, and he ordered somebody, he said, "Bring some warm milk." And he said, and he gave it to Ram Dass, and he said, "Here, you take this, but you have to drink it." In other words, it's exactly what you're saying here in the book, that is a mutual responsibility of the universe required. And just to add on to that story, another friend of mine went to India after Neem Karoli Baba had died, but fortunately it left us with this our Indian mother, who was a saint who had been with Neem Karoli Baba for a long time. Siddhi Ma is her name. And he went and he was talking about some way in which he needed something to happen in his life, but it was too worldly. He didn't want to ask for worldly stuff. This being is, there's no challenge for him to know what I'm thinking, is what this man said. And she said, no, it doesn't work like that. You, as a devotee, need to ask, and it's his job to respond. That is the relationship, which is exactly what you're speaking to here. No?
Yeah, beautiful. I get goosebumps from your story, and the similarity that's being mimicked out in the devotee-guru relationship as between us and the divine. And the divine is on standby, but I think it breaks free will if we can do whatever. But if we want some support, reach out and tell the mystery, gosh, I would love to live more healthy. What is one type of food I could eat? Or how can I be more loving to my partner? Or what is a blind spot that I have that hinders me the most?
Yeah.
And those are also generous questions, because they don't pertain only just a little me.
Yeah, but that's so great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, what you are saying is the definitive power of dreams can really allow one to work through situations that are very difficult, and we all have those situations in our lives, for sure. I had somebody. I told somebody I was going to get with you today.
Yeah.
And, everybody, dreams, everybody's interested, but many people, one person have trouble remembering their dreams. One person said, I go to bed at night, and I ask, please, can I remember my dreams? And I have not been successful. So let's talk about that level of problematic stuff around dreams.
Interesting, because normally just asking that question, please dream, I would love to remember you. Have a pencil and paper next to your bed. In 90% of the people, that solves the problem of dream recall. Maybe it's not the first night, but then the second or the third night, and then they have maybe 2 or 3 dreams a week. Very few people remember every night their dream. There are still enough, but the majority of the people that pay attention have 2, 3, 4 dreams a week. I think, again, it is, in general, it seems to be interest and willingness to follow up that indicates the dream recall. So it starts with dream, even you could say dream, but I don't get it. I try to remember it and I'm not remembering it. So maybe tell me, is there anything I can do to improve dream recall? And maybe get a dream about that. And then when you wake up in the morning, at a minimum, write down, I wake up, I feel some anxiety in my stomach, and you start describing that, just your physical feelings. And then the dream knows you're listening. And
start a relationship.
Treat it as a relationship with your own internal guru. Show it respect. If you have a snippet, thank you. I have a snippet. I'm walking in the supermarket. All right, that feels banal and ordinary, but let me write it down. And then 90 till 95% of the people will start having dream recall within days.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Actually, you talk about it in classical Jungian thought. The self is the regulating, directing center that sends dreams to help. Is basically, and of course, we have to talk about the self. Most people relate the self. That's that thing that's thinking all this bullshit day to day. And it's the movie of me, my friend calls it. Wake up in the morning and you're the director, the producer, the writer, the protagonists, and 24/7. And, you know, how do we move on from there? Of course, once we realize that a lot, so we really are talking about intentions, the intention to want to move beyond the me. That's why when you talk about an intention that includes generosity, right? That's certainly the first step in my mind.
And intention comes also from the Latin intendere, which means reaching out or reaching beyond. So you reach beyond the little self to the big self, like in Jungian terms with the capital S, which Jung uses as a psychological way of talking about God or the divine, but he doesn't use those words so much, or he might use the God image, but the self as a regulating center that is the ocean versus the little self that's the wave.
Yeah.
And the little wave often has very confusing ideas about itself.
That's a wild understatement. Yeah. So we have to get and Jung explains this phenomenally through his work.
Yeah.
The little self and the big self, and it's nothing to me. It's the same as the Buddhist concept of true self.
Yeah.
And the reality is that as we understand how we are so caught in polarization inside ourselves, separation, so and you see how your motivations include defense mechanisms so that we are protecting what our habitual patterns have been. We are protecting the places, our neurotic stuff. And you start to then understand, wait, that there, as Jung says, there is the big self. And the big self is as you said, the ocean versus the wave, but it's also the big self concerns, the concerns there are not limited to what is it, what's going to be good for me? What do I need? Ram Dass, by the way, in this wonderful film that we did a few years ago around him called Becoming Nobody, he talks about, at one point, I love this. I don't know how many times I've quoted this because it means so much to me. He goes, when is what I want enough? When is what I need enough? It's much more interesting to think about how can I serve, something like that. And that to me is the dividing line between the little self and the big self. And certainly these are themes that can be explored in dreams.
Yes, and it's beautiful what you say there. It also makes me think about the basic mythology or way of living life that I learned from the African shamans, was that the idea is we come into the world with wounds, but also with gifts. And the goal is to deliver your gift to community. And once you do that, you're in alignment with the self, and life has a purpose, and your life gets purpose. And so that is completely different. How do I do my life? How do I deliver my gift to community? And then you're serving something larger than yourself. And I think that on my travels, that I've also noticed that everywhere in the world, what we share is actually a deep desire to serve something larger than us. We might be scared, we might be whatever, but once we do that, we feel good. It's like, oh, great, I could help, I could deliver, I could make a meal, I could make someone laugh, I could, those things. And then
connection,
you get a more interesting, colorful life.
Yeah. Interconnectivity is a bit of a lost art these days. Well, you're living in this country. I was going to say, it's a little bit different because that art isn't as lost in Holland, for instance, as here it is really rapidly disintegrating, unfortunately, which is why whatever we can do to initiate the openness that it takes to get outside that little self is important. That's why, yeah, this method of incubation. Talk about that. Actually, we haven't really talked about the method of incubation. Talk about that of dreams.
So it's a very old way of engaging with dreams. I've studied it and traveled around, saw that it came back in almost any spiritual and religious tradition, where people had figured out that if before you go to bed, you can ask the mystery, the dream, whatever you give it to it, for support, and then the dream would give you an answer that would be helpful for you. And I looked at that and I practiced it for myself, and I came with this 5-step method. And a practical example was recently there was a man who had been married for many years, divorced, and was back in the dating life, and he noticed he said it doesn't flow so well. And he said, I really would love to meet a great partner. Can I ask the dream about that? And I said, yeah, of course, especially where you want to share your love, become more a loving person, deepen your love. That's a great question. And the step 1 was he identified that there was a problem that he would like support with, finding a partner. Then step 2 is phrase the question. And phrasing a really good question is one of the 2 things that this really hinges on. And in talking with this man, he said, yeah, I want that partner. But he said, probably if I know what my obstacle is to finding a good partner, I will be able to connect. But I know that there's something blocking me to connect with this partner. And so he said, I'm going to ask Dream, what is my biggest obstacle in my dating life? And that was a great question. One is he probably will be forced to look at something that is unpleasant for him, but is real work. It's also a simple question. What is one blockage? What's my biggest blockage? Because maybe he has 10, but he's just focusing on what is my biggest blockage. That will also help him later on understand the dream better, because the dream will respond to the question. And if you say, what are my blockages? You might see a lot of dream elements, and it becomes more difficult to figure out what the answer is. So he phrased a simple question. Then he did a ritual. And the ritual is the other part that is crucial to this way of this technique. And the ritual is really spending focused, respectful, heartfelt time on telling the mystery you would like to have support and do something. So this man drew a heart with a big question mark on it, and then wrote to the dream that he would love to have support and how this is going to help him and how this is going to help others. And so he spent time, and it's so relational that he just indicates to the mystery, I'm taking it serious. I'm not just handing in my request, like, give me a partner. No, I'm willing to do the work, and I'm willing to look in myself, and I'm also showing you now. This is meaningful to me, and by putting a pressure on the question, it also helps with the incubation dream. And in general, we could say pressure creates worlds. If I have a lot of pressure and anxiety, I start living in an anxious world. If whatever I put a lot of focus on, it starts creating the world that I live in. So back to the ritual, focus, intention, expectation, belief, respect, love, relationship, and that for a bit of time, that will do it. It's not how good you make a drawing, it's that you make a drawing. It's not even that you make a drawing. If you want to dance, you dance. I looked at a lot of traditions and they had very fixed rituals. And I figured out it's not the ritual itself, it is that it is ritual. And make the ritual that fits for you. Light a candle, do a prayer, do a dance, whatever. Find an object, make something. And so that's step 3, the ritual. And then 4, you go to bed, you meditate briefly on your question, sleep, have a dream. And then when you wake up, step 5, write down the dream upon waking, repeat it a couple of times, because at night your short-term memory goes offline. And that is why we don't remember hours actually of dream experience. Repeat it a couple of times, write it down, at the bare minimum some keywords, and write it down, write it full out later, and then work on it. And sometimes it's very clear, and sometimes you have to puzzle a little bit, but always be radical. It's like if a person goes to the guru and asks the guru a question, whatever the guru does is the answer. The guru might give a little bit of a riddled answer, might give a direct answer. We'll find an answer that is specific, attuned to this individual, or might give no answer, and that is the answer. Something what this guru does back is the answer. Same with the mystery. And so this man had the following dream. He says, in the dream, I am driving in a tunnel. And in front of me is another car, and I think I see a mountain lion in the distance. When I get close, I see it's a beautiful tiger, and I get scared, slam on the brakes, and back out. And that's the dream. So what I also suggest to people, instead of asking the question, what does this mean, which requires a bit of symbols and all those kind of symbol knowledge and mythology and fairy tale, ask the question, what is happening? Because everyone can answer that question, whether you have no dream work ever, or a little or a lot. What is happening? And so the man says, what is happening is, it's almost like he looked at it as a third person. Oh, I'm driving in the car, I'm moving through life, and then I see something that is beautiful, but I get really scared. And when I get really scared, I slam the brakes and I'm backing out. And then it's like, oh, against your question, what's my biggest obstacle in dating life? When you get scared, you're backing out. Now he has his work cut out
to work
for him.
with.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's really great. I think a lot of people can relate with that one, for sure, especially men.
Totally. And it's the woman or man that you encounter really beautiful, and or the intimacy, the vulnerability that it requires to connect, and up we're out. It's many ways that he and we can look at. Hey, where do we encounter this tiger, and how do we back out? Yeah.
And in the incubation process, I would have to believe, and trust is, and you do mention trust in the book, but I think trust is, that's a huge thing. It's something I like to talk about a lot, because intuition and trust go together so formidably. But in the incubation process of working with receptivity, with the mystery, and by the way, everybody, the mystery is synonymous, divine presence, Buddha mind, whatever you want to call it. Mystery is great. Roshi Joan Halifax uses that term a lot, the mystery. I don't know if you know her, but so I think that trust, let's talk about trust a little bit, because without that, you can be in situations where, that was just a dream, and
Yeah. And well, for anyone that hasn't done this, that requires even a little bit more trust, because maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Once we have the own experience, we start knowing, this works. Like you had a dream, this prophetic dream. So you know in the bones of your own being, there's something alive in you that knows what can happen the next day. And that is powerful. And trust is different than knowing for sure. You don't have to trust something you know for sure. And that's a big difference. You trust, you have to trust when you don't know for sure. And but this also, even you can bring that in when people say, "Can try this technique tonight." You could even say, "Gosh, yeah, I haven't experienced this before. I'm willing to give it a try. I'm willing to trust it." But I don't know if it works, and that is fine. That is honest, and people can practice this. This technique works whether you've never done dreams or you've done a lot of dreams, and it really hinges on asking the right question, doing your ritual, and make it personally relevant. So something that pertains to your life path. Then it works, and then the trust comes again the next morning. You get a dream. Sometimes it's very clear, sometimes it isn't, but sometimes the answer comes from an angle that you didn't think about, because it's new information, and so it requires a bit of puzzling. Then you have to trust that the dream answers, and pay a respect to the dream and puzzle on it, and maybe it comes through a synchronistic event in the day or later on or somehow. And the more I think more people do this and trust themselves and trust the mystery, the stronger, the easier it becomes to trust. And that relationship just gets stronger. That relationship just gets stronger over time by mutual engagement.
I think then it spreads into every aspect of our lives, that trust. And you talk about, I think one thing that's, before we have to go here, that's really important. You talk about people who engage with dream incubation, wonder whether dreams can be trusted. So just what we were talking about, whether they are helpful and they guide us. And you said, be sure to distinguish between regular dreams and the dream response that you get from an incubation. There might be a regular dream in which a trickster pops up, yet if you engage in the sacred activity of connecting with the mystery, then I do not believe you will be misguided. And I've been fortunate to have just that experience without any of this terminology, which and I've learned some from Carl Jung and his work around dreams. But I knew very early on, mostly after I met Neem Karoli Baba, the power of, you would call an incubated dream. I would have called it, I didn't know if it was what plane it was on, the dream plane or this plane. I would do things like after he left, I would have dreams of it. I remember when I first started dreaming of him, Neem Karoli Baba, after he left that particular body. And at one, I went, shit, how did you do this?
Yeah.
I thought you left that body. I was so confused in terms of the planes of consciousness. And so it led me to be able to discern the reality of a dream that, that kind of a dream versus a dream which is just running off desire systems and fear and so on and so forth. By the way, I have to tell you, here, help me out here, Machiel. I had a dream a week ago. I told this to my friend John, actually. He was like, it was as normal as nothing, but to me it was not so normal. I was with a group of people, friends, I guess. Each one of us had a wild lion or panther as if if you had a pet. And I was so in tune with this amazing living presence. And so at ease with it. And, there was absolutely, I had no fear. And I noticed next to me, the friend that I had next to me had a black panther, and I had an African tan female lion. I remember that exactly. And I was just sort of completely delighted. And then I woke up and I was like, I had never had a dream like this before. And I know through John, we all have, I don't know what you would call it in the Sangoma tradition of having a power, an animal that's your power symbol. I don't know what that was, if that was part of it, but yeah.
Well, where I would also take it is, and we alluded to it a couple of times, dreams are an other reality. And you have this reality and the dream reality. And there's a big tendency to discount that reality. But it's really, in the dream, you are in a world. And in this world, your mind is somewhat active. And you're engaging. And we just forget about that world when we wake up and we're in this world. And we take this world for real. We go to bed. We forget this world. We take that world for real. So it's a fascinating thing that we take the world we're in it for real, and usually it's the only world. But experientially, we know we live at least in two worlds. And I think in this other world that is real, you have a relationship with a dream lion. And the relationship seems to be really beautiful and intact. And technically, you could say, "Oh, you're in good relationship with your instincts." That would be a bit of an interpretive move. But if you would really say there's a dream lion, a dream being that I'm in tune with, that helps me, that can guides me, that I have a relationship that maybe I can do things for, you can build and nurture that relationship so that it remains beautiful. And now we have the dog coming in, almost like a confirmation of the instinctual life being present. But you could then talk to it, make a drawing, ask what it wants. But I would go as far as taking it as there's a real dream lion with you, and there's one of the beings that walk with you around, and is also present right now, not only in the dream. That reality is just coexisting to this, and you could connect to this dream lion anytime.
That's great. I love it. It fits in with my intuition about it, for sure. Well, we're at the end of the time allotted to us for this. But there's one beautiful thing you say, which I think we all need to contemplate. Especially anyone who's going, well, I don't know, and I don't remember my dreams, and all of the usual BS we tell ourselves about relating with anything we haven't had experience with, and it putting it off. There's an age-old tendency, you say, in us humans to refuse the call to adventure.
Yeah. Life
invites us to go in a certain direction, yet it doesn't fit with what we have in mind for ourselves. And everybody listening to this is a great way to take advantage of going on an adventure that we happen to go on every night when we close our eyes and let go. And Machiel has in this book, Dream Guidance, many very substantial ways to approach that adventure, and I highly recommend it. And I thank you so much for being here, Machiel. It's been delightful.
Thank you, Raghu. It has been such a pleasure to be with you, and to be in. And I love your energy and your connection to the other world, and the questions you asked, and the conversation we could have. So it was a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And everybody, we will have links to the book. Is the book out, Machiel?
Yeah, the book is out.
The book is out. So we'll have a link so you can purchase the book. and connect to Machiel's work in general. And Jung, of course, the book that he mentioned, that would be a good starter point for people. And we shall keep in touch here as we go through our journey.
Yes.
And again, really great to meet you. This is Mindrolling on Be Here Now Network. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com and just so many great podcasts that we have around these kinds of subjects. And I'm happy to be part of it. We actually have we're celebrating, Machiel, our 6th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Doing these kind of podcasts. So we're happy to share that with everybody. So we shall see you next week on Mindrolling.